What's good, Porch family? Welcome to a special episode where we're talking from the Marsh to the Ballot, why our vote still matters. Because today, we're not just going to talk politics. We're going to talk about history. We're going to talk about land. We're going to talk about bloodline. We're talking about the Gullah Geechee people too, and what it costs for us to have a vote. But first, I want to give a special shout out to our young people and parents across the United States that are doing big things as we vote. But I challenge you to also influence pre-registration to vote at 17 years old for actual registration at 18 years old. Because there are a lot of states out there that allow you to pre-register at 17 years old. I think that's pretty awesome. But then we also got to follow up continuously on the remaining 5 W's as we're solving the who. Because we can register to vote and stop there. Let's not stop there. Let's get the rest of those 5 W's so that we can understand the influential impacts of voting at each level. I'll talk about that later in the episode. But before there were ballots, there were chains. Before there were polling places, there were plantations. And before we could choose leadership, we were counted but not heard. Today, again, folks, we're going to connect the marshlands of the Sea Islands to the voting booth. Gullah Geechee roots and political power. The Gullah Geechee people preserved language, culture, land, and autonomy along the coastal corridors of the Southeast. After emancipation, we all know, well, I ain't gonna go there right now, but maybe talk for another time, the emancipation of Abraham Lincoln and the buffoonery that went on with that. Anyway, many formerly enslaved people briefly gained land ownership and political representation during Reconstruction, right? For a short window in history, Black men in coastal South Carolina and surrounding regions were elected to public office. But guess what? Voter suppression immediately followed. They had the poll taxes, the literacy test, and intimidation. So the right to vote, right? But then they're going to charge us a fee to go to the poll, pay the fee. Then they're going to say, can you read? Then they're going to try to scare you. Well, folks, they're doing the same thing today. That's the new Jim Crow. Wake up and pay attention.
Message.
Man. Because it's the same impacts that we're having today from these mindsets of these people, conservative thinking, to put these barriers in place again. But the vote was never freely given. It was fought for, as we know, and we fight for it again if we don't get out to these polls, man. But look at your ballot. From Reconstruction to the Voting Rights Act. So generations later, Black communities marched, organized, and demanded access to the ballot. The Voting Rights Act of 1965 came through sacrifice and through courage. People risked their lives so future generations could vote. And we are in the future right now from back then. So we're not doing our ancestors a good service right now. We got to get out here. I mean, just like we did when Barack Obama was running for election. I mean, we got to keep that same energy, people. We can't die down and then want to cry, pull them out when things ain't going our way. Shout out to Jasmine Crockett for what she's doing. Present day, why this moment matters. We are in another election season. Local elections impact schools. State elections impact voting laws. Federal elections impact national policy, generally speaking. But those are some things you can take to start getting more education towards how voting matters. Because if you have an issue with your school district, well, guess what? Your superintendent position might be up. School board position might be up. Even to your city council, your mayor, your districts, what have you. But those local elections, excuse me, they definitely can impact your schools. They can impact your quality of life. They impact the taxes you pay, local taxes. So, hey, go out and vote, people. Your state elections, your governors, your, your attorney generals. They write those statutes that you got to follow. So, hey, think about it. When the turnout drops, our influence drops. So voting is not about worshiping a politician. It's really about participating in governance. Like I said before, local elections impact schools, state elections can impact voting laws, federal elections can impact national policy. But the cultural responsibility and legacy we must uphold. While my people, the Gullah Geechee ancestors, preserved culture despite attempts to erase it. Civic participation is another form of preservation. Voting is one tool, but it's not the only tool. But it's an important one for sure. But we gotta keep in mind, it means refusing to be invisible. Let's keep that. Let's go there. But before I end this announcement, I'd like to add a few reflection questions as you've listened to this podcast and now going forward. Think about some of these questions, or if not all. Do you know, or do you know who is on your ballot this year? Do you know who your local representatives are? And what would your ancestors say about your participation? Well, folks, the Gullah Geechee people preserve culture when systems try to erase it. The ballot is one more place where preservation happens. Be informed, be engaged, and decide whether your voice shows up. I'm Rod, this is The Porch, and history is watching what we do next. Peace out.